Free to Be show is sponsored by Replenish Me membership. Show up powerfully. With monthly webinars, meetups, and coaching sessions, you can replenish online and relieve your stress and resolve your issues. Whether you are trying to recharge your entire staff or just seeking a community of support, empower yourself today with the Replenish Me membership. And now for tonight's show. Hello and welcome to the Free to Be show, where I get to interview and have conversations with really inspiring people who have freed themselves to be themselves and bring their light to the world. This evening, I bring to you an author of 7 books. His latest book just released in November, and he's received numerous awards, including the Nat Turner Book of the Year Award. And yes, I will ask him about that. And he also, 2 of his books are bestsellers. And of course, the one that just came out will also be a bestseller. So I want to welcome to the show. And I didn't actually ask the pronunciation of your middle name, so please forgive me if I mispronounce. But
that's okay.
Tonight, it's my pleasure to introduce you to Frank Zarquan Jordan. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's correct. Zarquan. You hit it dead on the nail.
Okay, perfect. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for, agreeing to come on. And I'm really intrigued because specifically, like a lot of people are writing books, but not in your genre. And so you're a historian.
Yes.
So tell me, how did you happen upon this whole history writing book endeavor? I really am intrigued because, I told you briefly that I couldn't wait to graduate from high school to actually learn world history, right?
So, right. We had this conversation.
Yeah, I'd like to know more about your journey with that.
You want to know something? Growing up in Brooklyn, I always was, just inquisitive, as far as why weren't there any, Black libraries, or why weren't there any libraries, period, in my neighborhood growing up in Brooklyn. And that's something that doesn't really get talked about, or that's an issue or a conversation that, didn't get discussed, back in the 70s, back in the 70s and 80s. So it always kind of piqued my curiosity, why I had to walk maybe 2 or 3 miles, up to, Brooklyn Heights, and actually go to a library, and the library wasn't in my neighborhood. But that was one of the things, that, pretty much piqued my curiosity. I've always been a history nerd, always been, just curious, about history in itself, other than what's taught to us, in schools, as far as what, role that Black people play in history. It can't be that we're just slaves in America. We were brought over here as slaves, from the 16 to the 1800s, and that's just it. So we're going to get into a little bit more. I don't want to pretty much take up the whole conversation, but I'll explain it as we go on. So
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So would you say you freed yourself, or it was, in your case, a journey of freeing your mind from what was expected and accepted? It was just expected that there's no library in your neighborhood, therefore you have to accept the fact that there's no library, but you chose to free yourself from that expectation, right? Would you say?
Right, right, absolutely. Finding the truth and actually honing in on our people and what they have done and what they have contributed to the society and the greatness, of Blacks, that was hidden. Blew my mind, and to this day, still, finding out certain things which was hid from us. One of the things that really stoked me the most as a kid, and I know I may step on a couple toes, is that around so-called Black History Month, of course, which we know I'm not going to insult your intelligence. This is the shortest month of the year, and why they always just portray one person, and that's Martin Luther King. Martin was a great man, for what he did, and at the time, taking nothing away from Martin. You would really think that that's it. Martin Luther King, follow the dream, and that's it. But when you dig, when you go a little bit more and you research a little bit more, and you visit a library, remember those things, people have forgotten books and what a library actually smells like.
I know, like not on your Kindle.
Right, exactly right. You come to discover, in which I came to discover, that it's not my opinion. This is all factual based, evidence that you come into contact, some of the greatest men on this planet were Black men. Socrates, Shakespeare, Aristotle. These are all Black men, that contributed a great deal, to society. This isn't taught to our kids in school. For various reasons, across the board. It isn't taught to our kids in school. They don't know things like this. They really don't know the greatness of us, because if they did, that builds great self-esteem about themselves. The carpenters, the goldsmiths, lawyers, the interpreters, the language interpreters, the farmers, the engineers. And I'm quite sure that, according to what I know and according to what I've researched over 30 years, I'm quite sure that the Europeans, along with the French and along with the British, and along with the Italian explorers, they knew this, coming over to Southwest Africa when they traded us off, just like cargo, and they traded us off just like, stock. They knew this. You're not going to get it. I'm sorry for going on a rant.
No, I was just going to say, it's remarkable that you're bringing this up, because actually one of the things I've found in my research is they had actually chosen specific areas of Africa because, like in Angola, for example, they were known for their iron work, and in certain areas they were known where Benin and where Nigeria are, in those areas they were known for their furniture work, like woodworking. Right. So they knew where the artisans were in order to build this country, right?
Correct.
With free labor. So this is the thing that we're not taught, but some of these things I've come to know just through homeschooling my kids and through doing our own study of our family, right? So my great-great-grandfather, he actually is from the area where they were known for wood making this exquisite furniture. And that he actually had a shop on the plantation where he was. And, so things like that. And then as far, I'm not like related to anyone from Angola, but I do have a friend who, when she did her ancestry, she found out that her people are from Angola, and they were traded because of their iron skills. And so, these are just the things that are extracted from history, but you have to free your mind to even consider the possibility that all the things that we have been taught are not true. And of course, this is what has allowed institutionalized racism to persist, because, right. It's almost like they, and there was it in 1737, there was like a German guy who actually came up with a whole philosophy of how to deconstruct the psyche of a people so that you can make them not only consumers, but you can actually rip them apart away from their culture and think that they're nothing and that they come from nothing. And when you make that part of someone's like upbringing, then you have active participants in whatever it is you want to do to those people. So
Right.
now you've got me on a rant.
Hey, listen, that's fine. Hey, listen, I'm on your platform. That's fine. Hey, that's good. That just gives me time to think about what I'm going to say next. That's excellent. But listen, two words come to mind. What you just said, white supremacy. And a lot of times, what our people fail to do, they don't like having uncomfortable conversations, and that's where I come in. Surprise! That's where I come in. The uncomfortable. The uncomfortable conversations is what's needed amongst the Black community, because we downplay and we dumb ourselves down so much to a point in America where we are taught and we are just so used to not speaking up about certain things because we're ashamed. We feel that it may cause hysteria. Oh my goodness, don't say that.
I'll
Don't,
lose my
don't
job
say,
or something like
right.
that.
Oh,
Yeah, people won't buy
right.
my
Oh my,
products. Yeah.
right. Oh my goodness, don't say that. It's because we've been conditioned, we've been conditioned to actually be a servant and be service people to white America. I mean, it is what it is today in the United States. We dumb ourselves down and we submit ourselves to white America just to fit in, okay, with what they have put across our plate. Our people, it's sad to say, Sister Cordelia, our people are really ashamed to be naturally who they are. Because why? Because, white America has spoon fed us for so long and conditioned us for so long. We're afraid to be who we are.
Well,
we're afraid.
I know, like, I'll just speak from a female perspective, right? Because we've got like a triple whammy going on there, right? So we get it from our own men, we get it from white women, and we get it from white men. And so we, because and I almost think that it's an act of courage and just more of self-expression now that Black women have decided to be natural, right? Because a lot of times I think part of the, to what you're speaking about, like the programming within our Black men, right? So there's two types of programming. There's the self-hatred programming, which they project onto their women. And then there's the self-hatred, which they cower down to white America, right?
Right.
And so then, like for our Black women, they'll say, oh, you'd be prettier if your lips weren't so big, or you'd be prettier if you straighten your hair, or something like this. And so, as a Black woman, eventually you just get sick of that. You're just like, you know what, I'm gonna just be me, because you know what, whether I straighten my hair or I leave it kinky, someone's got something to say. So just, just freeing yourself to be yourself is really the only way that Black women can take care of themselves. And, for the Black men, I would just say, it's like, just, you're struggling too, right? So like, just let your sisters be, right? So what would you say to that? I'm just wondering, what's your perspective? Like, what would you say to the Black brothers that they have so much self-hatred that they projected onto the Black women too?
Right. You have to, right. It's one word, conditioning. There's that word conditioning again. White America has taught us, like you said, and you nailed it. You hit it dead on the nail. To have nice full lips, that's not, that's a unseemly thing, or that's, not, that is ugly. It's not becoming. To have, nice and well bodies, that's not, that's fat. That's not, or to have melanin in your skin is a
and
bad.
Look, and not PHAT, it's
right, absolutely. But listen, Sister Cordelia, the things that I just named, the facial features, the skin texture, even to have the woolly hair. Christ had woolly hair. It's good enough for him. It's good enough for us. And the melanin. Don't you realize? So that's where the self-hate comes about. When you're a little kid, every time you open up a book, you see a white American. When Black women back in the 70s and 80s, when you got books like Elle and Vogue, We had to come up with our own books, because every time when you open up a book, the pinnacle, of the, in the essence, okay, of beautiful, you see a European figure. You see a woman with long hair, makeup. So as a kid, if you're not taught better and these things aren't readily available to you, and for you to teach your kids better, what are your kids going to grow up and think? Fictional playground. It's a fictional playground and a very deceptive tool mechanism for white supremacy. When you turn on the TV, the Cowboys are white. We all know the Cowboys were originally black. The greatest people on this planet.
Well, let's just stop. Hold on. So tell us more about that. We know, like me and you, but everybody that's listening or watching the show does not know. So let's talk a little bit about the Cowboys.
Right. The original Buffalo Soldiers, okay, they were black men, okay, down in the West Indies, okay, and they were black men. Black Cowboys were black. When Columbus came over here to America, to the Americas, he actually had a black navigator named Pedro Nino that guided him over here. Pedro Nino and his brother were actually black men. They were black navigators, astrologists, Benjamin Banneker, which is one of the greatest astrologists, on this planet. He built the White House. He made a farmers astrologist book to let the farmers know when it's good and when it's bad to harvest, certain things. So when Hollywood was created, this is people who created a fictional stage for them to portray everybody and everything that's great. So when you turn on your TV and all of a sudden you see people like Elizabeth Taylor playing an Egyptian woman, as a kid, what are you supposed to think? Oh, Elizabeth Taylor, she's Egyptian. Oh my goodness, beautifulest woman on this planet. Now as a kid, you're playing with Barbie dolls with the blonde hair, the Barbie dolls with the noses as a kid. That's called conditioning. As a kid, when you do this from a child up, you get it subconsciously in your mind, like these are the greatest people on this planet. Steve Austin, $6 million man, he's bionic, he can run 100 miles an hour. Where did they, you got people like Usain Bolt, these guys are breaking records, but reality always shows you different. Like, wait a minute, when you go back, the Egyptians didn't look like Liz Taylor. They were actually people, melanated people, and they were black. Benjamin Franklin, Plato, these. So it's one of the, you got to kind of look at it. And the same goes today with Hollywood today. When they make movies like Free Yourself, okay, and you start to learn a little bit better. Wait a minute, Socrates and Plato, these guys were black. Wait a minute, somebody lied to me. Beethoven, okay, which one of the greatest composers on this planet was black man. How and why, okay, do they have these people as white people? You got to ask yourself. Here's a picture of Socrates, okay, one of the greatest mathematicians, okay, on this planet. Okay, Socrates was a black man. Okay, he was a black man living in Greece.
He clearly has a fro. And that's the thing that I always thought was interesting, right? Because the Greeks were the slaves of the Egyptians, right? So we all know how slavery works, right? Just from what recently happened in the United States, right? So it only makes sense that the Greeks would be part black, right?
Right. Absolutely right. And they were called Hellenistic Greeks, or they were called Hellenistic Jews, because the real Jews were black as well too. That's another thing too. So it's one of those things, like you said, self-hate. So when you're growing up and you're seeing all of this stuff, even TV shows, Partridge Family, the Brady Bunch, Little House on the Prairie, and you're seeing all of this stuff on TV, and subconsciously what's that's doing is getting into your head. I want to be like Marsha Brady. I want to be like Laura Ingalls. I want to be like the Kardashian family. But in all actuality, Sister Cordelia, they're actually admiring us and admiring you, admiring how we look, the lips, the posture, the beauty of the black woman, the strength of the black man. And we have to come up with our own league called the Negro League. Same as basketball. When basketball was created, okay, they didn't want certain talents in them showing them up. Harlem Globetrotters, they tried to get into the league, bring into the league. They had a league, really was called the ABA. That was really a watered down Negro league called the ABA because not too many Negroes, yes, indeed. They don't talk about the ABA too much. Okay, back in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, they don't talk about the ABA too much. It was really a league for Black people. Okay, until they started commercializing Black people. Oh, we can make money off of Black people if we can incorporate them into the league. We can commercialize this and we can make money.
More money, yeah. So when we come back, let's just take a break because we've given a lot for people to think about. So when we come back, let's talk about the monetization of Black people. So I think this is a good stopping point. So we'll be right back.
Okay, thank you.
Replenish me. When I say that, what comes up for you? And when's the last time that you've done that? And where do you feel that in your body? Well, this is my invitation to you to explore the 4 steps of my Replenish Me program, where women learn how to release, restructure, refresh, and rebirth, showing up in the world, being true to yourself, only choosing words that honor your values, and only allowing behaviors and people in your life who do the same. Connect with me by reaching out at bit.ly/replenish with love and explore Replenish Me. And now for tonight's show. All right, so we're back. And, I want to, I know I said I want to get into the monetization of Blackness. And so there's so many different avenues, right? We could talk about organized sports, but I want to talk about something that people really shy away from, right? We all know about the Tuskegee. Well, maybe everyone listening and watching doesn't know about this, but, back in the beginning of the 20th century, there's extensive documented experimentation on Black men and women, and those are called the Tuskegee experiments, right? So this hasn't ended; it's still happening, and so we're going to talk about that in relation to your new book, because that's really what your book is about. Am I right, or just clarify?
That's correct.
Okay, so tell us more about that.
Right, that's correct. Yeah, this book I actually wrote 4 years ago is called Uncovering the Evil of America, What the CDC and FDA Failed to Tell Us. Now, in the Black community, there's no surprise, as far as, what we eat and how we're regulated and pretty much just marginalized, to what we eat and, what we put inside our bodies. There's a plethora of things, on a low scale, that is just so readily available to us that really just, it not only kills our immune system, but it just doesn't benefit us any. The things they put, for us to eat, in the Black community, is killing off the immune system. The immune system, a lot of people don't know what the immune system is, a collaboration of cells, in our body that fights off bacteria, germs, and diseases. So whenever you have a bad bacteria in your body, your immune system comes together, white blood cells, and they kind of like, just throw out, or heal the bacteria, the unwanted bacteria that's in your body. So to my point, things like, let's just say Skittles, for instance, right. Let's just say, for instance, Skittles, for instance, it's readily available, all the time. But a lot of people don't understand, what this red dye 5. And remember this red dye 5, okay, yellow dye 5 and yellow dye and red dye 6. And what that does, that kills the zinc in your body. When the dye is in your body, it kills the zinc off in your body. And zinc helps really reconstruct your nerve cells. It pretty much, it helps the immune system build, your smell, your taste. And when you put the number 5 red dye and the red dye in your body, you lose it. You lose it. So here comes your kid, you know, you give them, you know, $5, they go to the store and buy candy with all kind of red dye in it, which so happened the FDA approves. And here it is right here, Sister Cordelia. If you have dye and you're putting it in candy and know how much Black kids love sweet candy, and you're approving things like Skittles, you're approving things like all kind of candy with red dye, even Mountain Dew soda, okay, which has yellow dye in it as well too. So if the FDA is approving these things to be sold within the Black community, okay, so here it comes right here. You gotta use common sense. FDA approves it. Here it is. You get sick. You go to the hospital, and here comes the CDC with a vaccine or some kind of medicine to say, okay. And by the way, also, yellow dye that's put in candy has also been known to cause ADHD as well too. So that's facts. So what does the CDC do? Oh my goodness, you know, your kids are suffering from, you know, from ADHD, you know, oh, it's causing kidney failure. Oh my. So, you know, you have to go to the hospital, you have to get some medicine. So they work kind of hand in hand. Why would the FDA approve something knowingly that it's not good for you? May cause kidney failure, may cause liver damage, may cause heart problems, you know, because they know that when they do this, it's $1 billion industry to keep Blacks in America sick and to keep individuals sick as well too. $1 billion business, $1 billion business.
So
It's their job.
Just to slow it down, what you're saying is basically the monetization of Black people is through making them consumers of, like, first of all, making them patients that will require certain medication. And we know that big pharma is not even $1 billion industry anymore, but $1 trillion industry. So they basically have created patients, and once you get them on the medications, they'll be on there forever. So they'll never, you know, stop making money. And, you know, I want to also go back to your point about the immune system. Very good point about nutrition, right? Because if you kill the good bacteria in the stomach, which is the basis of the immune system, then it's unrecoverable. And, you know, like as children, basically these dyes and ingredients, you know, the sugar, let's talk about the sugar piece of it, right, actually eats away at your bones. So the bones can't even get to a certain level to even hold the you know, create the bone marrow that can support the white blood cell production in the body. So it's almost like you're set up for failure, right? Again, creating more patients forever, and then eating away at the brain. So now not only are they patients because they're going to need medicine for just health, but they'll need mental health medicine and, you know, have to go to mental health professionals as well. Wow. Okay.
Right. Right. Let me tell you something. You nailed it. You hit it dead on the nail. You know, it's their job to keep us sick, you know, like you said, consumers. You know, it would be no hospitals, you know, if it weren't for the sickness, you know, of people, you know, and how they do it, Sister Cordelia, they do it through what we consume every day, every day, every day. Let me give you an example. Even pesticide, you know, spray. You know, you have farmers, you know, that sell, you know, the vegetables to big corporations like Walmart or, you know, Whole Foods. The pesticides they spray on the crops is made out of 30 different sprays. So these sprays, if they're killing off the bugs, what do you think they're doing to you when you eat the food? You know, what do you think they're doing to you? You know, so you got to kind of look at it also. And people say, oh my goodness, so what are we supposed to do? We supposed to just eat nothing? No, you're supposed to actually just monitor what you put and do research on a lot of the herbs that you take. You know, do research, because for every medication that the CDC makes, there is a herb that can combat that and can really just, you know, reverse any kind of ailment that you have. You have natural herbs out here like yucca root. Okay, it has vitamin A, B, C. It has calcium in it because our bodies, Sister Cordelia, our bodies naturally have magnesium. Our bodies have zinc. You know, and of course water. Okay, in it. So you know these elements that we have in our body have to be put back into our body. Naturally, when you eat bananas, you know, they're full of potassium. Our body has potassium. Our bodies are made from the earth. Like I always say, you got to put the earthly things back into your body to heal your body. You can't go to a store and, you know, you're buying acetaminophen, you know, to cure your headache, you know, and then you're buying a Mountain Dew to chug it down with. That's double damage right there. You know, the acetaminophen has been known to cause kidney damage. You know, use natural turmeric. Turmeric is very good for inflammation. It's a natural herb that you can take in a tea, or you can just take in a pill formation. So these are some of the things that our people don't want because our taste buds and our taste palates have been conditioned as well too to accept. Everybody knows sugar is poison.
You know, like, don't get me started on sugar, okay? Because like, I mean, like I already said,
you being a nutritionist,
yeah.
I'm sure you can relate.
You know, like, first of all, like from a political standpoint, I disagree with sugar, just knowing the history of it, right? The sugar islands, because of the way, I mean, like one of the islands that my people come from is a sugar island, right? So, but like the French sugar islands are known, and it was well documented that they would just run the slaves through there on 24-hour cycles. Like they would have these people working for 24 hours to harvest the sugar cane and, you know, reduce it down to molasses to make the alcohol and all the things, right? But there would
That's
be
correct.
actual
That's
trenches
correct.
outside of the factory just to throw the bodies and put in the fresh body. So from that perspective alone, the easiest way, and you know, I do want to give a disclaimer. I have a certification in nutrition, but like none of the things that we're speaking about on the show are meant to replace, you know, what your health provider would tell you. I do strongly encourage, you know, buying uh, Mr. Jordan's books to find out more, and you know, also to just educate yourself on nutrition specific to your body and for your family. I do want to say that. But getting back to sugar, you know, it's like the sugar will eat away at your bones and muscles. You know, and we talk about Black children also being deficient in vitamin D, and it's not only because we're not outside enough, but it's also because of the sugar, the amount of sugar that you eat. The easiest way to reverse all of that, right? A great source
Mm-hmm.
of vitamin D and calcium are dark green leafy vegetables. It is also a great way to change the palate. This is a technique I've used with my children. I have them eat dark green leafy vegetables so that they desire less sugar, right? It's just the easy, I had to recondition my palate, right? Because I really liked sugar. And so, you know, just eating something, right, that it's going to do two things at once. Yes, it's going to reduce my desire for sugar, and it's going to make my bones stronger. It's going to make my brain stronger and my muscles stronger. And also, you know, to your point about herbs, right? So pharmaceuticals, let's be clear, they are taking the active ingredients of herbs. Basically, they're just taking out the pieces of the herb that are active, right? That actually help you do something. However, in order for it to be what makes the body happy, the body needs the whole herb, right? So it
Right.
doesn't just
Right.
need the active ingredients, it needs the whole herb. So but unfortunately, right, we've been conditioned to want everything instantly. So yes, the medicine works a lot faster than herbs. Yes, it's going to take about probably 2 weeks of taking an herb to get the same response that you would get in 2 minutes from taking a medicine. However, the long-term effects, you know, of having the herb you'll be healthier and stronger for longer. Taking the medicine, there's long disclaimers, right? There are side effects of just extracting what's necessary. So
Right, you hit it. You nailed it, and that's funny. Two words you use that spark me: side effects, and I use that word when I'm talking about this in particular. Herbs have no side effect. Herbs have no side effects. They have never been known to have any side effects. But when you take Tylenol, the acetaminophen, they're known to cause addiction. They're known to cause liver damage. They're known to speed up your heart rate. So with that right there, you got to kind of look at it. Matter of fact, skipping over that, look at the Tuskegee experiment. The only thing they had to do was actually, the penicillin plant been here on this earth. The penicillin plant was here when the natives were here. So you had a couple of activists. The Tuskegee experiment was from 1932 to 1972. It was 40 years. Of anyone's not familiar with it, it was a 40-year period. Okay, when the CDC gave permission to the Public Health Service to go down to Alabama and inject syphilis into Black men. Now, that died from similar causes. So the penicillin plant, as we know, is a natural herb that actually kills, most diseases. I think in the 1932, you had this scientist that made it into a form of medication, of liquid medication. But the penicillin plant been here since the natives were here. And penicillin knocks syphilis right on out. Knock it right on out. Don't you know that the CDC, don't you know the Public Health Service, don't you know they denied him entrance into Alabama? And they said, no, that's okay. What we're using is going to work. And they had the Black people come back to the clinics and injecting them with more stuff that, that didn't help them at all. And, only thing they needed, Philip Randolph said, listen, the only thing, penicillin, knock that right out. They rejected them.
wow. Yeah. So, I do want to close out this section just talking about, so we see the history of the conditioning, like just the emotional and mental conditioning, and then we see the consumerism conditioning, and then also moving us away from our natural medicines, because one thing we didn't talk about is a lot of the enslaved were also, medicine people, right? So they knew, they had a history of knowing the herbs and knowing the earth and what to use to heal themselves. But in the stripping away from the culture and the knowledge, this is, the reconditioning now came where, that's ancient, that's not going to work, you need to use medicine, and that food, you don't want to eat that food, which, a lot of the foods were healing foods. You eat them with the season of harvest and everything like that, like the time of the year that you're going to need more vitamin C and vitamin C, vitamin D. Those are the foods that we knew to eat, but we weren't even allowed to eat those foods, so over a period of years, all of that knowledge was taken away from us. But I just want to, close out this section just recognizing that while those were the issues and this is the conditioning that's been happening, I want to go into the next section talking about the healing that is happening and the regaining of knowledge, starting with all the books that you've written, and how, I feel like there's like a Black Renaissance, if you will, happening. So we're getting back in touch with our ancient traditions, and we're learning where we came from and who we are. So when we come back, let's talk a little bit about that. All right?
Yes, we will.
I was born for this. I've been marked to be countercultural, proclaiming spirit over everything. It is a blessing to be a woman with a wild mind to expand past popular thought. I'm awakening from the cultural hypnosis and mind-controlling ideologies of the self, spirit, and what's real about life. What is the most authentic thing I can do right now? Every choice I make belongs to me and no one else. I was made on purpose. I will astonish this mean version of the world with my softness. I am a woman of alchemy.
So, and you know, here on the Free to Be show, I want us to free ourselves to be ourselves, and in that freedom, we are healing ourselves. So we've talked a lot about the pain of, systemic racism in America, and the, how it has even been monetized, right? The suffering of Black people has been monetized. But I do want to talk about the new Black Renaissance with people like Mr. Jordan's books, what he's bringing to light and what people can learn. So if you can just walk us through each of your books and, the knowledge we can gain so that we can work towards our healing, that would be great.
Great, thank you. Hey, listen, I want to share one book in particular with you. This was my first book that I wrote right here. It's called Not Just a Coincidence, What Pastors and Leaders Fail to Tell You. I literally only have one copy. This book, I think, sold probably close to maybe 10,000 copies, if not more. The strange thing is, Mr. Cordelia, this book tells you and explains to you, the things that happen to us as a people is not a coincidence. And oddly enough, Amazon they refuse to put this back in their catalog. Go figure. They just refuse to put this back in their catalog. I think this is the last surviving copy maybe that I have. I think it's maybe the last surviving copy that I have. Like I said, go figure, go figure. It's not a shadow, is it?
Yeah, I actually can't see that title, but what I'll do is, if you can give me the title of each book, I can also put that in the show notes. So, if there is a way to access it, just give me the link, or if you have them all on your website, even I can do that. So.
Okay, it's fine. It's fine. All right, let me go to the next one. Okay, this particular book right here is called 500 Years of Deception of America, of American Deception. This book pretty much journeys you through the 14th century, which is known as the Italian Renaissance, where you had Italian painters, sculptors, guys like, of course, Rembrandt, Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci was paid a commission from the popes during the 1400s to actually reconstruct and rebuild and redo, and to actually take from all the original dark art and actually paint them white. These guys were experts at that. They were experts at that. They took, every, painting, in the Black, painting Rome and Jerusalem and Africa, with the permission of the popes. And they just pretty much just reconstructed everything. Because Renaissance, the word Renaissance means to renew and to rebuild. Prior to the 1400s, there's very little known, really, white art around. So that's another thing also. They did that also for white supremacy as well, too. Rembrandt, even when you get Rembrandt toothpaste, it's right in your face. Rembrandt is known for what? For whitening your teeth. And that's exactly what the artist Rembrandt did in the 1400s. He whitewashed all of the dark art. This book right here, Greatest Show on Earth, this book actually is about what we spoke about today, the conditioning and actually the self-hate that's amongst Black people. How did it start? How did we get to the position that we're at? And how did Black women go from their natural hair to wearing orange hair? How did they go from, wearing their natural hair to using chemicals, to straighten their hair, which has been known, to do a plethora of damage, to your roots, to your skull, to your natural roots of your hair. Nobody can be you but you. This book right here is called The Holiday Hustle, Controlling the Black Mind and Finances. This book tells you all about, what has been put before us, whether it's Mother's Day, Father's Day, whether it's Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving was one of the most murderous days, for the North American, for the natives, which are known as the piqued Indians. A guy by the name of John Winthrop, waged war, on the piqued Indians, which was known as the Piqued Massacre. And what happened as a result of that, they celebrated by making the North American Indians make turkeys, and, they kicked the Indian chiefs' heads around. And that's how the game soccer actually was born. So when you actually are celebrating that day, Thanksgiving, you think about it. The turkey represents the body of the North American Indians. The stuffing represents the guts that they was smashing, the soldiers were smashing with their feet. And the cranberry sauce represents the blood that was spilled. So, you think about that next time when you, when you got a slice of turkey, cranberry sauce, and stuffing on your plate. So not only that, it's just the holidays across the board, and this book specifically breaks down the calendar days and the holidays, that are put forth to us here by America.
What's the name of that book? The one about the holidays?
The name of this book is called The Holiday Hustle, Controlling the Black Mind and Finances. And also it shows how much of a commodity, a financial commodity, that our people are to the American corporations. Our people spend over, it was reported back in 2018. I don't think the 19 reports have gotten out, but I know 2018. Don't you know how people spent over $1.2 trillion during the month of December? This is the one that I just wrote. It's called "Oh Say Can You See? The Unmentioned History of Terrorism." In America, on Blacks in America. This book pretty much, tells you about unmentioned events, that goes on, that has went on since we've been over here in slavery. The experimental medications, like the psyche experiment, the things that are levied on us, the things that they don't want to talk about, such as, look, it's one thing that comes to mind. Two things that come to mind. The Philadelphia bombing, that happened, I think, back in 1985, when you had the Black Move group over in Philadelphia, and you had the United States government bomb, a Black neighborhood, in Philadelphia. I think 11 people were murdered, babies, and, the neighborhood was just totally annihilated. 12 blocks, just totally annihilated. No one wants to talk about that, No one wants to talk about back in 1863, when the Emancipation was signed, Sister Cordelia, that so-called freed Black Americans off the slave plantations. Speeded up 2 years later, 1865, the KKK was formed up. Now, here's where I'm going with this right here. 1863, the Emancipation was signed. Free the slaves, go, you're free, go. 1865, the KKK was formed up 2 years later. So the KKK originally, was formed up as a policing group, to actually capture slaves and bring them back on work farms. A lot of people don't understand this. One particular thing comes out to mind, in Mississippi. It was a neighborhood called the Devil's Punch Bowl. And here's how this worked right here. 1963, when it was the Civil War, Confederates against the North, you had the Confederate armies, in Mississippi, that rounded up over 20,000 slaves, over 20,000 so-called free slaves in Mississippi that was just hanging around. They were on the slave farm, they had nowhere to go, they were just hanging around, but they were free. So the Confederate soldiers in 1865, they rounded up, over 20,000 Black people and forced them back into Black slave labor concentration camps. There were more there were more black slave concentration camps here in America. It's slavery after slavery. It was more concentration camps here, black concentration work camps here in America than the entire rule of Hitler during the time of Germany. And that's something that they fail to talk about. You mentioned one thing. You said a pit was dug on the islands, okay, during the time when they was making sugar cane. The same exact thing happened in Mississippi during the time of the Devil's Punch Bowl. They had work pits, and mysteriously enough, they worked, the kids and the women, and they dug a pit, and they had a cliff where mysteriously enough, after a year, over 20,000 bodies just disappeared, and they were found over the cliff of Mississippi. Look it up, Devil's Punch Bowl. That's something that they don't never talk about. That's a terroristic act. 20,000 black people murdered, literally worked to death. And they don't want to teach your kids about this in history. They don't, the only thing they can show is Martin Luther King marching in Washington and giving a speech talking about, I have a dream, I have a dream, I have a dream. And they want our people just to continue to march today and, hold candles and go back home, and they look on TV, worst scenarios are happening. When does it end? When does it end, Sister Cordelia? When does it end?
You make me think, I actually wrote an article this year called When Will the Killing End and the Healing Begin? Because it's not like, before I get to that, let me just say this word terrorism. I think it's interesting. One thing we know in psychology, right, is people will project things that they're guilty of, right? So
Absolutely.
It's interesting who the terrorists have been identified as, right? Terrorists are usually Black men, Muslim men, people of color. And it's
Absolutely.
interesting, like if you actually look at human history at, the last 5 centuries, most of the terrorist acts against humanity have been committed by white men only. And
Absolutely.
I'm not diminishing things that may have been done by, small areas of, people of color that may have done things, but let's just be clear. In those cases, they were political puppets. They're
right.
on the Gold Coast. It's called, the Gold Coast in Africa, Cote d'Ivoire. Most of the recent dictators were controlled by France, right? And we don't even have to go to Africa to see it, but I mean, like around the world and within the United States, a lot of the politicians, who have perpetuated crimes against their own people were puppets, political puppets. So we can cite Black on Black crime, but is it really, right? Because it's the psychology of terrorism that is really controlling the behaviors of humans. So in order to bring ourselves to healing, we have to stop the system that allows this kind of thing to perpetuate, and the way to,
do they want to stop it?
Well, it's not about what they want. There are more of us than there are of them, right? Because
Bingo.
It's only
Bingo.
really the 1% that's running the show. But
right.
That means there's 99% of humanity, and we're sheeple basically because we're not educating ourselves. So as long as you're not educated, then you're not going to do anything about it because it's not happening because you don't know.
Right.
But now, the great thing about 2020 is people, really got a better understanding of real history.
Absolutely.
Not just American history, but around the world. And I think people are moving away from being sheeple and more towards being people. And that's where it begins. Once we embrace our humanity, that's the first step. Now, the challenge is to see other human beings as human also, right? And so this is where I talk about, one thing I started talking about in 2020 was this concept of allyship. And that's just having the courage to stand up for your fellow human so that the healing can begin. So I really thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, the great thing about, renaming my podcast Free to Be is like I'm free to talk about all the stuff that I want to talk about that may be viewed as controversial, but controversial is kind of relative. It depends on what you're afraid to talk about, right? What scares you shitless. And for you, it'll be controversial. For me, it's just something that I think about sometimes, and I wanted to have this conversation. So, and if we don't have the conversations, i.e. if we don't look into and actually acknowledge and feel our deepest and darkest emotions, we can't show up powerfully. We can't show up powerfully for ourselves. We can't show up powerfully for humanity. And we will never heal. And we'll always perpetuate a system that will terrorize other human beings. And that's what we don't want. And I don't believe in that. So I really appreciate you sharing your knowledge, sharing your time.
Thank you for having
and all the research that went into all your books. So thank you so much. And for those of you who are watching or listening and have, received value, there's two things I'm going to call you to do. First of all, buy Frank Zarquan Jordan's books. Get more education, right? And if the things that we talked about today were terrifying, you are mad, I welcome your hate mail. But all the same, subscribe to my podcast and share this, because sharing is loving. It's an act of love towards yourself, towards other humans, and it works, in your favor as far as beginning the healing with yourself. So thank you and good night.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. The Free to Be show is sponsored by Replenish Me membership. Show up powerfully. With monthly webinars, meetups, and coaching sessions, you can replenish online and relieve your stress and resolve your issues. Whether you are trying to recharge your entire staff or just seeking a community of support, empower yourself today with the Replenish Me membership. And now for tonight's show.